Hi, everybody. Today is Monday, February 20th, 2023. My name is Michael Zornick, and today I was going to go over a pull request that I've made for myself in my side project and kind of just walk through some of the changes and some of the things that were kind of curious to me. So this project is Franklin. Franklin is my potential blog replacement app. And it's built using a event-sourced pattern. And I had a ticket that I should design and build a system so current static images assets from the old blog content work. Just to show you what we're looking at here. So this is my existing blog. It's written in Hugo, and you can see there's a content folder. And then there's a post folder, and then there's a bunch of content. And then inside of the folder, there'll be like an index.markdown file. And then some folders contain images. And so this is my trip to Boston. And inside the markdown, I reference the image kind of like with a local path. And so it'll kind of load that way. And my plan as I kind of get my Phoenix app ready to kind of import all of the old content was I do have visions of creating a Amazon an S3-esque bucket system for uploads and handle them that way. But I thought it would be nice to be able to just for the old content, just import all of the old image and other assets within the paths that they've historically used. And that would just make my job of just getting this thing deployed just that much easier. And so that's kind of the goal of 95. Now I couldn't do 95 because to do that properly I need to have slugs in place. So in the current application, it's in the application on main, it's much more like the way it is in the admin here, where you've got articles and then you got a UUID that identifies it. But for the public site, I don't want that. I want it to be a proper slug. In the case of my Boston trip, it's articles, and then it's got the slug, which is this string right here, 2023 1 Boston 2020 trip, whatever. Anyway, so that was the basic goal of this ticket, which will unblock this. Is articles should be able to be loaded by slug, and so to do this, I had to add slugs to the domain, add slugs to the admin UI, and then update the public part of the site so that it actually honors the slugs. And I did this PR, and honestly, it's much bigger. 52 is a little overwhelming because there's a lot of files, the static images, because the paths moved as part of this work. So it's not 52, it's probably closer to 20. But still, there were a lot of files that I had to edit. And the challenge was, I'll just start with the domain. So normally, if you want to add an attribute to an entity, you can imagine that you'd have to edit it in multiple places. You'd have to edit it at the root level, the schema, which would probably involve a migration edition. And then you'd have to add it to potentially the domain context. So if you're accepting attributes and you've got those all type spec'd out, which I do in the side project, you got to add it there. Then you've got to add it within the live view or the controller or whatever is actually running it. And then you have to add it to the presentation, the UI itself. So I had to do all of that, which is kind of normal. But then I also had to do all the command stuff. And that's where it kind of got I don't know, when you browse this PR, you'll just see me adding the word slug, the field slug, just all over the place. So just to go over that again. So inside of the domain context called articles, in this case, I had to add it there. I also added an accessor so you can get article by slug. I mean, that could be refactored to be something more tighter in the future, but it works for now. But you can see I had to add it to all the type specs there. And then I had to add it to the schema and its types. Then I had to add it to the article aggregate. And this is the thing that basically executes each event to generate like the projection of what the article should be. And so I had to add all the events. And so there were events like article slug updated, which is really basic. It's just the identity of the article and then the slug value, but that becomes part of the chain of events for the CQRS stuff. I had to augment the command. So for creating an article and updating an article, all those had to be added. And then the projector itself, I added a new broadcast name because I'm also constantly broadcasting like pub sub notifications if like a field of an entity changes. And then the validations. So like I had to validate all this, and so I added the core validation here, and then this validation is used both by the front end UI and the persistence layer. And this actually introduced my first like kind of edge case where it was more of a challenge to use these validations across both of those places. And that's because when you create a validation for the front end, it's based off of a non-database backed struct value. And so certain things like apply unique constraint is not appropriate for, or I'm sorry, unique constraint function is not appropriate for the like without a database. And so if you try to do that, it'll yell at you. So you kind of have to have the ability then to like customize it where like I want to validate the slug, but I don't want to apply the unique constraint. So I have that like little option there, which is kind of neat. Yeah, and so and this just continued to go on through the router and then everywhere else. You know, for all of these like changes, I continue to apply my philosophy that like I want to test things at the user level. And so I have updated and added test for that, but I'm not attempting to do unit tests for all of these new little, you know, modules and things. Like I want to test things from the user's perspective in implementation, let it be what it'll be. I don't really care. So that was like point one that was kind of interesting in this work, in that because I'm doing an event-sourced app, adding an attribute to an entity just seemed like it required a lot of editing, which seems unfortunate. Now, I feel like as I get better with event-sourced, I'll find ways and patterns to kind of work around that issue. This unrelated to event sourcing, this is part of what has me interested about like the Ash framework, because it's like, it's kind of interesting if I can like describe my domain in a single place and then like share that knowledge with the persistence layer or the GraphQL layer or whatever. I don't think Ash is really relevant to event sourcing. I mean, maybe people are using that for that, but I don't know. We'll see. That was kind of interesting point one. I'll mention this, which is so to generate the slugs, I am using a library called Slug. Yeah, it's pretty basic. It's at 1.3.1, and it's got some, you know, customizations in there, but basically it'll let you kind of pass it a string, and then it'll do its best to generate a URL friendly slug. And so I use that along with some custom logic, which is based off my old blog. So basically I take the title, and then I take the URL, then I take the published at date, and then like I'll generate a slug that's like appropriate for that. And you can see here in my module, this is actually one case where like I wrote some examples. I'm using doc test to kind of validate this, which is really cool, I think. And yeah, so that was that. And then the final thing I'll mention, so I've been going through all of this work to kind of like make sure that the UI layer is distinct from the domain layer, because in theory that will enable you to create a customized user experience that, you know, it doesn't require you to implement hidden things like in the domain layer. And I hit my first kind of example of that with this. So if I go to the admin section and I go to new article, you'll see this form here. And so this has title, slug, published at, and body, which those are one-to-one matches for the domain. But this checkbox, auto-generate slug from title, is not. That is a concept that is like unique to this UI presentation. And so the fact that I like have an explicit article form like entity. So this is an embedded schema that, you know, implements our things, but then like it also implements slug auto-generate into Boolean. And it was really cool that like this entity could evolve and change, and it doesn't require a kind of like one-to-one matchup with the domain. Now, it's more work. I mean, clearly we're writing like this whole extra module. We are sharing the validation logic with a central collection of validators, which helps. We did have to do that unique constraint like option to kind of make it work, but I thought that really worked well. And so this allows this title, so like I can you know, start typing in a title, and if this is checked, it'll automatically generate the appropriate slug. And then if I uncheck it, this will allow somebody to like customize the slug to be something unique, but doesn't have to be like a one-to-one match with the title, which will be good for probably some archival content of mine. So yeah, I like that. There's also like validation rules, so like invalid format, so you cannot have exclamation points. If you automatically generate it, of course, you would never get exclamation points because those will be like filtered out from the title. But yeah, cool. So that's that. Is there anything else interesting here? Got our test and just a little bit of refactoring there, but not a whole ton of things. There's one more thing I had to add to. I have this module for like arranging data in the system prior to a test. Had to add slug there as an option. And yeah, I don't know. This took a lot more code than I thought it should have, but it works and it's ready to go. There are some other unrelated image asset concerns that I've video recorded the other day that are related to this, but are not, you know, this fixes slugs, so articles can now be loaded by slugs. I will be merging this. I'll merge it right here on screen. All the tests are passing. You know, tests are running, so we'll just squash and merge. I like doing squash and merge because it makes like a single commit on the main branch, which makes it very easy to reverse that commit should something go really wrong. But yeah, so that's that. And then the project board will update, and you'll see the PRs merged there, and this is now marked as done. That technically unblocks this ticket, which I may continue to look into. I may just wait until I get some. I have some open questions on the Elixir Slack about my bug, and so I'd like to see if I can get an answer for that. And other than that, I'll start working on some of these other things. But that was a bit of a ramble about my PR. I thought it might be interesting to folk who are interested in the project. If you have any questions, do let me know. Other than that, have a great night, and I will see you soon. Bye-bye.